All right. So last thing we ended was that Moses took them out of Egypt through the Red Sea. So where did they go? Did they go directly to Israel? Huh? What happened? Where did they go? To Mount Sinai, which is kind of down there. Okay. What happened at Mount Sinai? Okay, God appeared to them, gave them the Ten Commandments. What else did God give them a command at that point? To build what? The tent. What's the tent? What's the name of the tent? Tabernacle. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So God gave them the commandments, gave them the tabernacle and the law. Okay. And then you'll find a couple of books coming into this time. I'll just name those books. So this is the period of time between Exodus and going into the period of Judges. Okay. So we're going to go a little bit more details here. So Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, which is mainly about the sacrificial system. Okay. And then the book of Numbers. So in Numbers, something really interesting happened in Numbers. So God appeared to them in Sinai. Okay. And supposedly, within 40 days, they would make it from Sinai up to the promised land. Did that happen? What happened in this interim period? Something happened. So they were supposed to go directly this way. They had a bit of a detour. What was that detour? Very, very famous story. So they're basically, I'll prep you there. God appeared to them, gave them the Ten Commandments, gave them instruction for the tabernacle. They built the tabernacle. They're now going with the tabernacle. Supposedly 40 days or whatever time, they'll be right here. So they get up to here, and now they are trying to see the promised land. How can they get into it? So they send some people into the promised land. Who are these people? When you're in a military situation and you want to know what the enemy is, Scouts. Spies, scouts. Yeah. So there are scouts, spies. How many spies do they send? 2 are the ones who actually stood out. But how many were the total? 12, exactly. From the 12 tribes. It was one from each tribe. Perfect. So then what do the majority of the spies say about the promised land? It's horrible? It looks really bad? No, they say it looks really beautiful. But what's the problem? Yeah, what's the problem with the people? What else? No, that's not how they describe them. Huh? How do they describe them? They were giants. They were mighty men. I was like, and we felt when we saw them almost like insects. So out of those 12, did everyone agree with those 12? Did everyone agree? Obviously not. How many disagreed with the rest? 2. Who are the 2? Who are the 2? You know, at least one of them is a very, very famous name. Huh? Huh? Yeah. You said it. Joshua, exactly. Why are you guys scared? Why are you guys scared? Okay. So Joshua, who's the second one? Who's the other one? Starts with a C. No. Caleb. So what do those 2 spies, what did Joshua and Caleb tell the rest of the people? Okay. What did they tell them? Huh? Yeah. But the land is very, very beautiful. So did the people of Israel listen to Joshua and Caleb? Did they listen to them? Did they listen to Moses and they decided to actually make it into the promised land? Did they decide to do that? No. So they rebelled and they said, no, we're not going to go. We don't have the courage to make it into the promised land. Okay? What did God do at that point? Okay? What did God do? So they told him, like, we should choose a leader okay, and go back to Egypt. And God's punishment for them, not one of you will enter the land. As for your children, I'll bring them into the land. How long did they stay lost in the wilderness of the desert? Does anyone know? 40 years. Excellent. So instead of 40 days, you're absolutely right. So there's actually something very interesting that a lot of the biblical scholars says, like, was it always to that? And that's where most people feel that the symbol of 40 is for like a complete period. It's like it was a big complete period. Could have been like 39 and a half, 42, like, but it was a good chunk. It's not just a day or two. Okay. At the end of the book of Numbers, after that, Moses' farewell speech to them is in Deuteronomy. And then Moses gives the leadership after that to Joshua. Okay, so you guys, looks like you're reading the book of Joshua. So what do we know about Joshua? What do we know about him? Yeah? Do you know? Yeah? Tell me, what do you know about Joshua? Okay. Was he like a weak fighter? No, he was a military commander. Okay. He's the one who told them, like, be strong and courageous, and God would lead you into the land. So they literally had to come from the side, okay, and then instead of going up this way, because God kind of almost like punished them, they had to go into wilderness. When they are crossing to this, what are they crossing here? The Jordan River. Excellent. So what happens in the Jordan River when they're crossing the Jordan River? Exactly. So, like, literally, Joshua tells the Levites to take the Ark of the Covenant, okay, and to step into the Jordan River. And the moment they step into the Jordan River, just like the miracle of the Red Sea, the Jordan River parts way and they cross in the middle. So then they come and they cross, okay? What are some of the famous cities they conquered? Okay, what happened in the story of conquering Jericho? So God told them, you come to Jericho and do what? Just sing some songs? Walk around 7 times. Okay. So 7 days, actually 7 days. And on the 7th day, you walk 7 times. And then at the 7th time, do you like throw some stones on them? Blew the trumpets. Excellent. What happens when they blew the trumpets? The walls fell down. Did all the city of Jericho like hated the Israelites? There was somebody in the city of Jericho that was kind of faithful to God and learned of God, learned of God's ways in Egypt, and decided to join the camp of the Israelites. Who that person? Who's Rahab? So she had like an inn on the wall. And when the 2 spies as well came to her, they told her, when the walls are going to fall, God told us that nobody can survive. So what was the sign that they asked her to put on the window so that nobody would touch her house? They told her, let's have a sign. Huh? Yes. What was the color of the robe? Yes. You guys know it. So the story is that at that time, because this was a military city, and it was a war, and God had already spoken to Rahab's heart. She accepted to join the Israelite camp, and the sign that it was given was the rope. So right after that, did the Israelites keep conquering? Like one city after the other, right after Jericho. Did they keep going one city after the other and it's like everything was great? Obviously not. So does anyone know, and this could be a hard one, does anyone know what was the city that they conquered right after Jericho? Or like they fought, didn't conquer? Okay, it's called the city of AI, not the modern AI, but okay. So it was a very, very, very small city compared to Jericho. Very small city compared to Jericho. Did they win that battle? No. Why not? Exactly. Achan. He took something, he stole when God said, do not take anything out of Jericho. All of it would be destroyed as a punishment to the people of Jericho. But he stole, and because of that, they lost. Okay. So after the period of Joshua, so Joshua, they take the land, and then comes the period of the judges. Okay. Who are the judges? What do we know about the judges? What do we know about the judges? Who are the judges? Give me some names of the judges. There are very famous names. So the judges were basically commanders of the people. Yes. Yeah, give me some name. Okay, that's one of the people that was associated, but Delilah was not a judge. Who is the judge she was associated with? Yeah, the strong dude. What's huh? There you go. I love it. You remember Delilah and the strong dude, but not Samson. Good job. Good job. So, so the judges were leaders of the people of Israel, but you can realize that at that time the people of Israel were all over the place. They were not really unified. Okay, so you had a lot of these cycles. Okay, where they forget God, and they serve other gods. They're handed over to raiders, and the judges deliver them. So a couple of the very famous ones. Okay, Deborah, which is one of the female judges. Okay, Gideon. Okay, does anyone know the story of Gideon? So all these were like military conquests. And Gideon, they were a much weaker side of the army. And Gideon wasn't really sure that he had enough confidence in himself that he would be able to do it. So he was like, I need a sign from God. What was the sign that Gideon did? Yes, but that's not the sign. That's the sign that how he chose his men. So yes, that's how he chose men. But what was the sign that he asked God? It's like, God, I'm not so sure I'm going to be up to do this. I don't have confidence, and I need a sign from you that, what, you're with us. Anyone know the sign? All right. So what he did is that he took a piece of cloth. Okay. Anyone who's been to Israel during many times of the year, okay, there's always, because like it's high up on the mountain, there's a lot of dew in the morning. Okay, you know the dew. Okay, so what he said to God is like, okay, I'm going to put this cloth on the ground. All right, and I want to wake up tomorrow, and the dew will be all around this cloth, but this cloth will be completely dry. So wake up the next morning, okay, and finds that this cloth was drying all the dew around it. Does he believe? No. He says, like, you know what? Let's reverse it this time. I'm not saying he's playing games, but it's like, that's how, like, he wasn't really sure of it. So he says, God is like, you know what? No. I want it the other way around. I'm going to put this cloth. I want to wake up tomorrow morning. This cloth would be all of it full of dew, and all around it is dry. Okay? He wakes up next morning and he finds it. So he believes that God really has called him to lead the Israelites in battle. So then happened the story. Okay. So he says, okay, well, all right, let's rally the troops. Let's go to battle. So 10,000 come to him. And God tells him, is like, no, you don't need this number, because the strength is not in the might of the numbers. So how does he end up weed out those men? Yeah, it's kind of a really weird analogy. But basically, they come to a river, and the river, is running water. Okay, so a lot of the men just take off their swords and their battle kit and all that, and they literally just walk into the river, and they're drinking and just frolicking and doing all sorts of stupid stuff. Versus others who actually don't do that, and they're still paying attention. Okay, and those become only 300 men. And God tells him, take those 300 men, because those 300 men are alert. Okay, they know what they're coming to. They know it's a battle. Okay, and he ends up taking those 300 men. All right, so keep going. At the time of also the judges, you get the book of Ruth. Who is Ruth? Girls, this should be one of your favorite stories. Okay, I'm not because it's just a feminine, because it's an amazing story. Okay, so who's Ruth? Who can tell me? First of all, is she an Israelite? Is she an Israelite? Obviously, when I'm asking the questions, like the answer is no. Okay. Can anyone tell me where is she from? Okay, she's from one of the cousins, but she's not an Israelite. It's called a Moabite. So Ruth, okay, and this is like a beautiful story of how when you're faithful to your family, okay, how God treats you. Does anyone know the story? All right, give it a try. Give it a try and I'll help you. Okay. So the story starts with a mother, okay? The mother's name is Naomi, okay? Naomi. Naomi has two sons. Two sons are married, okay? Unfortunately, because of a famine, they have to leave their own hometown to a different place. And in the midst of this happening, the two sons actually end up dying. It was very common for people to die young. The one of the sons, the other wife, basically, tells Naomi, "Sorry, your son is dead at this point. I have to go back to my family's home, okay, and find a husband for myself." Ruth sticks to Naomi. She takes care of Naomi, okay? She's very faithful. She said, basically, Naomi, your people is my people, and she stays with her. She remains a very faithful servant to Naomi. They both come back after the famine is done to Israel. And at that time, Naomi wants to find a husband for Ruth because she's a very, very faithful daughter-in-law. And through God's work, God sends a very, very good man, Boaz, okay, who becomes the husband of Ruth. And because of the story of how faithful they were to each other, those become the grandparents of King David. Okay? Those are the parents of King David. So it's a story of that actually, out of faithfulness to each other, God sends his people. All right, so moving on. Okay, so we've talked about here. Okay, so Exodus, the law, Joshua and the conquest, the judges, and we're getting close to year 1000. So we'll end at this today, okay? So this is very important. So this is the year 1000, which is still the United Kingdom. Now we're going to go into a little bit of like this part here. At the end of the period of the judges, there's still a lot of mess happening in Israel. We get the character of Samuel. You guys must know Samuel, right? You know Samuel. Okay. How was Samuel called? Okay. Tell me more. Okay. And then did he answer right away? Huh? Who did you go and talk to? Because like he wasn't sure this was God's voice. Not his dad. Huh? He talked to who? Who is like usually running the show in this area? There was a high priest. Okay. Does anyone know what the high priest's name was? Excellent. Excellent. So was Eli a good guy? He was a good guy, but he was weak. He was weak. Okay. What was the problem with Eli? He had two sons. Okay. All right. Were those good guys? Those are supposed to be priests. So those were supposed to be protecting the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. Does anyone know at that time who is the arch enemy of the Israelites that they were battling? If you go back to the story of Samson, okay, who was Samson battling? What were they called? No, Canaanites were a little bit earlier. Canaanites was the time of Joshua. No, these were a new group of people. You know, some people think that they're the modern day, people of Palestine, but they're not. They're not. What are they called? Philistines. The Philistines. Okay? So those now become the arch enemy of the Israelites, the Philistines. That's who Samson battled. So the Philistines are fighting against the Israelites. The Israelites are not doing well, they're weak. What do the sons of Eli think about doing at that period of time? Because we're losing. So what should we do? No, they don't surrender. What do they do? Hmm? What do they do with the Ark of the Covenant? Ah. Okay, all right, so what do they do? So this is basically like, first of all, they were very evil. They were not fighting with God's blessing because God didn't bless them. But they thought is like, okay, well, maybe we'll bring in the ark as kind of almost like some magic, okay? And when we have it there, we're going to all of a sudden win. So what happens? Yes. Huh? We don't know. It's probably damaged. The Ethiopians believe that they have it in Ethiopia, but nobody has been able to vouch that, to see that. But we think it's been destroyed at the time of the exile. Okay. So they take the Ark of the Covenant. Do they win the battle? Huh? What happens to the Ark? It's captured by the Philistines. Exactly. So the story of Samuel is that he was a consecrated servant in the temple. So he hears God talking to him, and he doesn't know if that's God or not. So he goes to who to ask him? Eli, okay? Because he thinks that Eli is calling on him. But that's not the case. He's not calling on him. He says to him, like, just go back and listen again, okay? So he goes back, and then it was God talking to him. What did God reveal to Samuel at that point? He revealed to him exactly what we just talked about. That, you know what? Your sons are going to be killed in battle, and the ark is going to be taken. And it's interesting that Eli doesn't do a whole lot. Doesn't really, stop it. He's so weak at that point that God is like, okay, well, it is what it is. He gives up, okay? And he ends up basically, losing both his sons, losing the Ark of the Covenant. And actually, the story says basically, when he heard the news, he fell, broke his neck, and died. So at that point, we start to see the rise of Samuel, okay? Samuel is the last judge of Israel. And then what happens here at the time of coming of King Saul? Do the people come and say to Samuel, hey, Samuel, you're a really, really, really good guy. Let's keep going like that? They tell him what? They tell him what? They tell him, we want a king just like all the other people have a king. So then they pick Saul. Do you know how they pick Saul? Because Saul was actually, that's the Bible says, he was actually very big, he was mighty, he was tall. He said basically, we want somebody who's going to be like a mighty king in front of the rest of the kings. Saul was a good king for several years, but then he started to turn into almost literally like black magic and other ways that God displeased God. So God then tells Samuel, go and find another king that I'll show you. So Samuel goes to the house of Jesse. Excellent. All right. So what's the famous story? So he goes to the house of Jesse and tells Jesse, show me your sons. He's got a lot of sons. And he's looking at one by one. And God tells him, like, no. Does Samuel at that time give up and say, hey, all right, I came to the wrong house? What else? What does he do? He asks if he has another son. So the interesting story is that actually David was not even there when Jesse came. And Jesse tells him, like, yeah, we've got one more son, David. He's just a shepherd. He's flock. He's with the flocks. So they bring David. What does God tell Samuel at that time? Anoint David because he is a king. What? It was a specific word. After my own heart. Exactly. He's a king after my own heart. What does the anointing, look like? Does he take a sword and put it on his shoulder and say, hey, you're king? What does the anointing look like? It's oil, exactly. All right, he's being anointed with the oil, okay, on his head. And David becomes king. So does David become king right away? What happens? What's happening between him and Saul? Exactly. So he's running all the time away from Saul, okay? But we know the famous story is like he actually, one time he gets very close to Saul. What does he do to Saul? Does he hurt him? What does he do? Yeah, but what does he take from Saul? He cuts part of his robe. Tell him like, this is how close I was to you. So it takes part of the robe of Saul and just cuts it and takes it with him. And then shows him from far away, this is how close I've gone to you, but I didn't touch you, okay, because you are the anointed of God. Eventually, what happens to Saul? He dies in a battle with Philistines. Who dies with him that day? David's best friend. Who's David's best friend? Jonathan. Exactly. So Jonathan, the son of Saul, okay, he dies at that time. John, probably let's break it here. I think I'm فصل خلاص. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, we've gone actually, like, this is a good place to kind of stop the United Kingdom, because then next time we can actually do the split kingdom and all that. Exactly. Any questions or anything you guys want to inquire more about at this point in this? Okay, let's do just some very quick revisions. Okay, so we had the 4 500s, right? So let's start from the very beginning. 2000. Do you mind if I'll ask a little bit, because I want to just see if people were paying attention or not. Okay, what was in year 2000, roughly? The coming of who? Which character came around the year 2000? Okay, yeah. So we said, okay, 2000, 1500, 1000, 500. Who's the first character we started with? 2000. Who's the father of all the Jews? Abraham. Exactly. So Abraham is around year 2000. Okay? All right. Pay attention, because I'm going to be picking on you. Okay? So Abraham. Who's the son of Abraham? Isaac. I'm saying pay attention. I'm going to pointing to you. So wake up. Who's the son of Isaac? Jacob. Okay? And then Jacob had how many kids? How many? 12. Yeah, 12, exactly. So those 12 became the 12 tribes. Okay? All right? So what happens roughly around the year 1500? They were in the country of what? Where are you from originally? Exactly. So what happens around the year 1500? They exited. What's this exit called? No, Exodus. Exodus, right? Okay. So that's around 1500. Okay. And then we just talked about right after that, you get Joshua and the Judges. So what happens around year 1000? Who's the major character around 1000? King Saul and David. Exactly. So the United Kingdom. Okay. All right. And then, as we're going to go on next time, around year 500 is what happens in year 500. The year 500, exile. Okay. So can you guys remember just those 4 big blocks? Okay? So 2000, Abraham starts. 1500, Exodus from Egypt. 1000, David and the monarchy itself. Just lump them together. 500 is the exile, the Babylonian exile. And then 0, you come to Christ. Okay? Just remember those 500 blocks. That will give you a little bit of a framework to understand the Old Testament. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you for your time and attention, and we'll see you hopefully next time.